not necessarily a strategy, but just like something that you've found that can help people get through the BS. Not to be like, consistently always thinking about what can we do to help people, because I think it's going to be the byproduct of listening, if they are, is actually just the fact that they're getting this knowledge from just people who are just living it in a very, very real way. But there is a lot of crap. Like the other day I was listening, and I hate to throw people under the bus, so I think that we should employ the same thing as the Chris and Paul show, where we don't list any names.
Don't name names.
Don't name names, right? But one of the things I was hearing from somebody, she was saying that, like, yeah, you know what? There's a really big range for hypertrophy, and that is from 5 to 30 reps. And I'm like, huh? 5 to 30 reps to grow growth or get growth is like, what you're seeing is you're seeing growth in that equation, but it's not the 5 to 30 that is getting growth, right? It's like that's not how it works. Like there's literal things we can actually quantify that provide a hypertrophy stimulus that are much simpler than confusing that, because then the next person's like, well, so what do I do? Do I do 30? Then we get into questions like, well, why are you failing at 30? Why are you failing at 10? What's better? What motions? Are there muscles that fail better at different ranges? Should I be training high reps, low reps for compound motions? And it's like, and these people who are trying to start and just go get big biceps are already failing, right? So if you guys have, I'll kick it off in terms of what I was thinking. If you guys have some thoughts on that, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But basically, to be honest, I already started. That was pretty much it. It's like the fact that there's a lot of crap out there that people are perpetuating around like hypertrophy. And we were talking earlier about, like, it doesn't really matter. It's like all roads lead to Rome. It's like all roads lead to mechanical tension. I don't care how you realize it. That's the goal for me, is to get people to understand what that means. And I don't want to be a science podcast. That's not ever my goal. But like, what does that mean to somebody who is literally not really either not educated or not well versed in this field? It's like, you got to get into positions that let you not only understand how to work the muscle, and that can be as simple as get your arm into a preacher curl and just do a bicep curl, or it could be like a leg extension, right? Get yourself into an extremely stable position so you can just contract. What you got to do with it is you just got to get it to slow down, right? And that's actually a lot easier said than done, because people lose that nuance. And that sounds like well, maybe it isn't nuance, but they think that is so simple. Me, when we were talking about the session today, but like the squats, it's like, you might be thinking like, well, I'm doing squats. Why are my quads not growing? It's like, well, you don't understand leverages maybe actually influencing your movement to actually always be more hip dominant, right? The internal moment arm of the muscle is like, no, like, this is going to be a hip dominant motion for you. You're probably not going to use your quads in this motion. So you're doing it first. You're doing all the things, but what's going on in the motion is your body's going to develop glutes from the squat. That's how it's going to work. So you got to pick something else that's going to help you get that stimulus from the muscle you're trying to work, right? So like the BS myth that I've found is that people think that you can just do more volume and you will grow. And that's the thing I've found. It's perpetuated, and it's sad because there's way more knowledge coming out now. There's way more knowledge becoming more available too, because it's kind of always been out there, but it's being more available. But people are still turning their eyes to it. They're like, bah, 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 and they're just like kind of plugging their ears, because people will say that. They'll be like, yeah, low reps. And then when they slide their program to their client, and they slide it underneath the table, and it says like 4 sets of 30 leg extensions, drop set. Do a drop set, and then once you've done the drop set, do a myo rep, pause set, cluster set, and then it's like, oh my God, well, you don't even believe in the knowledge you're sending to your clients. And the volume myth is perpetuated because people just genuinely don't know how to grow muscles. So I'm going to do the whole roundtable with Alex just to start, because I know that you you recently had this training bout where you were doing a lot of volume after doing not necessarily strength training, but lower volume. Yep. So I want to know how that, since that's kind of what I'm going off of, how was your time in that? What did you realize coming out in and out of it?
So I think I would even dumb it back even more to, right, we know that we want to get into positions that we're actually working a muscle, but for someone especially starting out, I feel like getting into a position and knowing what muscle you're targeting and working is like an intermediate step. So I'll answer the question of, what it felt like for me to go into and out of high volume and then back to kind of more strength based. It sucked. Like knowing now, like again, now that I feel like I'm technically actually intermediate, I was always working out all my life and whatnot, but getting back to where the only reason I was failing was because my heart rate was jacked or there was just too much burning in my muscle was not nearly as fun. And especially knowing scientifically that that's not actually leading to hypertrophy anyway. Yeah, sure, mental toughness. It's always good to like push yourself in different ways. Not taking anything away from that, but pure muscle growth, absolutely garbage. And it like knowing it felt awful for those like 4 to 6 weeks that we were doing that. I was like, yes, I'm in here doing this. This is stupid. Steve knows it's stupid, but I'm gonna do it because we're experimenting, blah, blah, blah. But the whole time it's just like, oh, this hurts way more than just failing at heavy weight. So that's where, and you can feel the burn even more because you know what muscle you're trying to contract. So it like all compounds in that respect. But then pulling it back to the beginner of what's something BS, and I think we can all talk about like the balance between scientific lifting and bro lifting of, yeah, you want to lift properly. But I think even more importantly for a beginner is to lift heavy and know what actual failure feels like at 6 to 8 reps. Like just absolutely dying, like it won't go up, it won't move. You had to use the racks on the safety squat, like you're not coming back up in a hack squat. Your bicep will not move from whatever position's in. So knowing what that failure feels like, and then the intermediate step of, okay, I know what heavy weight feels like and what I'm failing. Now let me make sure I'm only working that muscle. And then that's actual, you're gonna have to back off on the weight. And that's like the next step is swallowing your ego to back off on the weight and fail just in the muscle versus failing. It's still too heavy to even like throw your back into it and stuff, but fail just at the bicep and then leave it at that. So I think, yeah, especially again with some clientele we were talking about earlier, they want to jump right into I'm moving perfectly. And yeah, it's lightweight, but I did 12 reps of real slow, just thinking about it. And that's not when we're talking hypertrophy, it's just not going to get you there. So it's like back up and lift really heavy and then get back into moving perfectly. Like too many people, I realize that this kind of contradicts things of, no, you got to move well first.
Yeah.
But I feel like people who move well then never know how to actually push it.
Yeah, dude. Like there's a massive kind of like asterisk there that people don't understand. It's the concept of understanding two things at once, right? Is that they think lifting heavy is somehow correlated with like danger and like lifting badly. Right. Like no. It's just, it just means confidently. I think that that's where Corinne would understand really well because like a background in powerlifting, being predominantly where you started, right? And understanding is like there's never a heavy weight. There's just a weight you either can't do for one or it can do for 3, and then you can do for 5. So maybe it would be a good thing to hear from you there, man. Like what's your feeling about that? Just kind of like adding on to what Alex is going off of.
So I was just thinking, and this is just my opinion, and I'm not saying that like it's right, but when I started working out, like I had never really heard of this like 5 to 30 rep range. Like when I first started out, it was kind of like, oh, if you want to build strength, like in your compound motions, like do your 5x5s, and like for hypertrophy, like 12 to 15 rep range. If you're cutting and trying to lose weight, like maybe do 15 to 20 reps, will burn more calories, like that sort of thing. I would say that your level of advancement though will dictate what you should do to get the result that you're after. Cause like if you're a beginner and you don't have the skill and you can't even get stable in a position, then what are you going to get out of 6 reps where you're doing a bicep curl, but like your shoulder's unstable. So you're not getting anything out of it. You need to get more reps so that you can acquire the skill and get the stability to stay there and actually benefit from those 6 reps. And it might take a few years for you to get there. But yeah, like that's kind of where I stand. So like for beginners, I wouldn't object to them having to more reps just as like a skill acquisition thing.
Mhm.
And then you progress, like you earn the right to do your 6 reps to failure
Yeah.
because you're actually able to get there.
Yeah, because it goes the other way too, right? Meaning like nothing. It's almost like it's true anecdotally, and that reflects in the training result. Because if you look at the other way, where it's like 1 rep, like a max load, like literally 1 rep max, that has nothing for hypertrophy, right? Or it has everything to hypertrophy because it teaches you how to work hard, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
directly has something to do with how much of this field, how much of this sport is not even about the science, which is why it's such an interesting conversation, because the science is out there, the theories are there. But what's the point of the theory without the application? And the application is it being realized in the human subject. And the human is an interesting thing, right? Because you take a person, this is where it becomes ultimately fascinating. Because I always see this through the lens of like Corinne was saying, like again, skill and working capacity, this ability, let's say. But then we have this other thing, which is motivation, right? And you have this person, and motivations like this, again, concoction of obviously like intrinsic motivation, neurological motivation, but also like motivation based on your own self-belief, meaning like if you haven't done, you won't do. And so if it's this person needs heavier weight, they need to go heavier because they need to obviously get the recruitment that's going to help them do that. And that will pay dividends later on in hypertrophy training. But let's say they never actually push it because they don't understand what it's like to push it. Like they don't actually get it. Then how are they going to grow? Like how are they? So they need to go through phases of like, hey, I'm getting stronger. And to be honest with you, this is one of the hardest things in training as a coach. For a couple of reasons, it's hard obviously to get people to buy into that because they don't understand for some reason, somewhere along the lines, probably where Richard Simmons came in. He separated strength training from bodybuilding, and it came in like a bunch of leotards and a bunch of panting and sweating. It's frustrating because I've had so many clients who actually start buying into it, and what happens? They get stronger. And because they're getting stronger, they're not panting. And they're not panting, they start saying, well, how long are you doing this strength training? I'm like,
Yeah, because they don't feel like they're working hard.
Yeah.
No, but you're getting results. And the whole time you were doing what you wanted, which was the sweating, panting, you weren't getting the result. You kept on saying, I'm not understanding why I'm not growing. It must be genetics, right?
Right.
But now you're getting the result. You're getting stronger. And they're like, well, how much longer? But it's like this, it's so frustrating. It's like the hardest thing, not only because you're seeing the person do it themselves, but because you know you're like, this is the answer. Just trust me. And this is, I would say, like probably the first elephant in the room. Maybe it's not an elephant, I don't know, but it's definitely a nasty myth that we need to dismantle in the fitness industry, which is that strength somehow isn't correlated towards muscular growth. Right? And it's like, come on, guys. Like, what do you think this does? When in the history of ever has a person grown their bicep and then not gotten stronger as a result in the bicep? Like, never. And then conversely, so again, PEDs aside, conversely as well, when is the last time somebody kept on training the bicep with the same weight and also grew their bicep? Again, the same weight. 10 years go by. I can still only curl 25 pounds. And it's frustrating. People are like, well, it's not about the weight. Okay. Well, if it's not about the weight, why not 12 pounds? Why not 3 pounds? Why not just grab a pencil and curl it? Then they're like, well, you need some weight. Okay, so suddenly weight has entered the conversation. So there is an amount of weight you're willing to concede to. They do need a weight. Why not just my fist? Right? So there has to be something. And that's why it gets really frustrating to talk to people, because it is a strength sport. We are chasing. We're just not chasing it for 1 rep. We're chasing it for 6 to 8 or ish, right? And again, I think that when you start viewing it from that lens that everything leads to all the hypertrophy is basically all the roads lead to mechanical tension, then the 5 to 30, like Corinne was saying, becomes way more sensical, because you start understanding this is about the individual, and that's why the model needs to be approached on solving the individual rather than saying, no, this is how it works, just do that. Because I do agree, like certain people, if they're in their first year, you say do 5 reps, they're not going to get anything from that.
Yeah.
They don't have any recruitment. They have nothing. So the only way they're going to work hard is if, like, you basically strap their arm in, like I'm Jigsaw from Saw, and I'm like, you have to do 25 curls, or otherwise your arm will rip off. I'm like, ah! And then do it, and then like what happens? They're going to get a good curl, and they're going to get a good bicep pump. They're going to feel amazing, and it's going to grow, because that's how it's going to be, right? They have to learn how to work hard. But yeah, man, like this is the thing that frustrates me, obviously, because you can see that I'm ranting about it. But the myths around hypertrophy and why it's so perpetuated in this field is frustrating. And I hate to say it because I think it's probably the thing that nobody wants to say, but I believe that majorly it's perpetuated because of the entry of endurance sports intermingling rather with hypertrophy training and the entrance of PEDs. Because when PEDs started coming, people could do anything they want and they start growing.
Yeah, you sit on the couch and grow.
Like legit, yeah. So like
Yep.
that actually happens. You grow. So okay, so then we can't talk about anything because you're gonna grow. Cool.
Like all these forms of exercise are good in their own right. It's
Yep.
where so if somebody just is like, I'm not growing, oh yeah, because your heart rate's at 180 for 45 minutes a day, and then you don't want to do anything else. Like I get it. That's fine. Like but don't say that's your goal. Like you got to match your program with your goal. CrossFitters would whoop. Again, I know I always shit on CrossFitters, just because I hate it and it's hard, and they'd whoop my ass in like a whole lot of shit. But okay, that's great. That's your goal. That's your goal. But yeah, exactly. I think it's like the myth of just any exercise you grow is not true. It's just like, yeah, you're not gonna. Well, then there's the whole thing of like, I can go lift as heavy as I want. If I'm not fueling it, then I'm not gonna grow.
Yeah. Yeah, the food conversation is interesting. That's what you said.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, fueling with food.
Yeah.
Like if I'm at a 300 calorie deficit and just going as hard as I can all the time, why am I not getting any bigger? There's a very direct correlation there, but
Yeah. So before I rank, that'll set me off. Corinne, I gotta let you chime in on Alex's thing there because I know that's something that you've experienced firsthand, which is aligning your goal with the like the method or with the process and being specific.
Doing a workout and then going and eating like a crap ton of food isn't necessarily going to promise you the growth, right? Because like you could probably make a case for like just example with like CrossFit, very like metabolic heavy workouts. Well, they're probably not going to be the best at like building muscle. Something else that I wanted to bring up, that it's not even just in like number of reps in a set, but it's also, and I see it with like pro bodybuilders even around here, redundancies in exercises.
Oh,
So it's like they're going to do a leg workout and it's like, okay, I'm going to start with leg press and then I'm going to do Smith machine squats, heel elevated. And then I'm going to get into the hack squat and then the pendulum squat. And then I'm going to go and do leg extensions.
Yeah.
And it's like you're doing the same motion like 5 different times.
Yeah.
And like
exercise is huge. I'm glad you brought that
volume.
up.
Yeah.
Let me talk.
Yeah. And then also just like for myself, like in my personal experience is before I would do like, I was only really able to train legs like once a week because it was like a pretty taxing leg day. And it's like, okay, I'm going to do lunges, then I'm going to get into the hack squat, then I'm going to do leg extensions, and then I'm going to do leg curls, and I'm going to do this and that. And there's no way that I can train legs more than once a week with that. So each muscle group there is only getting stimulated once a week. And now, like, I hit something in my legs at least like 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
And I think I've seen better results from that. Like I've seen more muscle growth in the last year probably than in the 3 years that preceded that.
Yeah. And like I would ask you as well, how's your intensity on those training bouts when you hit the muscle?
Like now versus before?
No, with the increased frequency and not having to do it. Like, so meaning like look back, let's use your old workout style as a reference, like a full leg day. The last exercise on that leg day, right?
It's shit.
Yeah, exactly. Your effectiveness goes right down, right? But now let's say instead of doing leg extensions 4th, or like you're saying the gym bros do it 29th, variations of a squat pattern. Like, okay, sagittal movement 28, now 29, we go into leg extensions, right?
Yeah.
And after we do single leg extensions. But anyway, so like how effective are you now though doing leg extensions, first, just on a different day?
Yeah, so much more.
Right. So then what's the point in doing it earlier? Right. So that's what people don't understand, right? It's like they don't, and this is a great idea for another conversation, just in terms of, again, we don't want to get into the science behind it, but getting inside the actual, like, if it's the anecdote or if it's just like just how it's observed and how you actually see it express itself to be true in training and what that means. Because like if you can't do it, what is the point? Like actually, what is the point? And I've been doing that a lot with my own training lately, and just kind of paying attention to that. Where sometimes like the deadlift day, the other day, I was planning on doing. That was yesterday. I was planning on doing some quads after, and I told Corinne, she was there, and I was like, I was shaking. I was like twitching after the sets. I was like, I can't do quads right now. It'll be useless. And if I do, it's not only that I can't because it'll be useless training, but if I do, I can't do it tomorrow. I have to wait another 3 days. So I'd rather just like not do it, understand nothing's gonna happen, and then just do it tomorrow. And then today I did it. What happened? Broke some records. Yay! Right? Because you're refreshed and you can actually do training. And so that's the whole point, is people don't understand. So exercise redundancy is there though, because they don't understand the fundamentals of training, which means progressive overload, you're trying to shoot for that. But progressive overload, again, conversation, right? But they don't understand what they're trying to accomplish. What you're trying to accomplish is progress. What does that mean to the person?
I think Corinne's myth that she busted, which again, for people who have, like us, who have been in this and kind of investigated all these areas before, but especially for a beginner, is that the bro split is not anywhere near optimal for total growth over time. Like, I started out in it years ago, right? Chest day, back day, shoulder or legs on Wednesday, shoulders Thursday, thighs and tries on Friday, rinse and repeat 2 years in a row, right? And I got a lot of beginner gains, all that kind of stuff. But over time, without a separate stimulus, you're just maintaining week to week.
You know what? One of the first times that I didn't even notice it, that it was actually that I observed this kind of training to be true without even having any clue I knew I was looking at. Like I literally didn't know what I was looking at. It's almost like somebody put a filter over my eyes and I didn't know because I was asleep when it happened. Then I woke up and that's just what I saw. And it was that when I had my back problems like 10 years ago. And I was trying to get my bench up for years before that. I really couldn't. I couldn't get my bench up above 2 plates. I was weak as hell. Couldn't do it. And then I had my back problems. And then what happened is my bench went up fast. It was like within like a week. And so I didn't know what happened. I just was like, yeah, right? It would be just because I'm doing bench more. But I actually wasn't. I still had my exact same training. Like it was still, even though I had a back problem, I still did legs every single like 5th day or so. Because like you were saying before, like you train a lot. You can only train like once. Like I think it was like Friday and no, it's like Saturday and then the next Thursday. Like that kind of space between the leg days. And so I wasn't making any progress. But the thing with my back injury, what I didn't know it did is it made me drop every type of bit of intensity on my leg day. And so I wasn't beating the crap out of myself. And because I wasn't beating the crap out of myself, fatigue was naturally way down. Way down. And so because fatigue was down, my bench went up. Because I always could bench that much, but I just couldn't access it because I was always in this massively depleted place. Because guess what my program was? Legs, push, pull.
Yeah.
So literally right after legs was push day, and I was just obliterated. Always shot. And then the second the legs went down in terms of the ability to do me work, bench went right up. And I took my bench from like 185 to like 250 within like just probably not even a couple months. Because I always could. And that was the thing I didn't understand. And then now looking back, I'm like, it's insane. Because a lot of my clients, I have a couple I work with in person, not excluding Ukraine, who've utilized this kind of training style where like you start understanding how to manage fatigue and actually how to realize it. And you lean off of exercise redundancy to kind of go off your point. And you start understanding like, well, the reason why the redundancy is there is because they really are just jamming the button of the exercise because they don't understand. They don't understand what hypertrophy is about. Again, mechanical tension. They don't understand what that means. So they just jam the button. They just keep on smashing it. They think more is better. More must be better because it's doing this or it's not getting the result. So as a human, the only thing I can influence now is intensity. And the intensity of them is just do more. Right? And then you take that away, and what people don't understand is like, again, we talked about this, is they think when you say back off the volume, they think, so I'm not growing, and your solution is to do less of what isn't already working, and I'm gonna grow. That doesn't make any sense. And like, honestly, it's true. Like it is true. Like if you were to do the same and just do less, you aren't going to grow. But what happens in the background, people don't understand, is that fatigue comes down. What happens is your ability to recruit motor units and upregulate force, it just goes through the freaking roof. And then what happens, you start seeing your weights go up, weights go up, weights go up. And then suddenly like you're doing reps with weight you couldn't even do. Like Corinne comes out of a deficit, she starts post scripting 170. Like what? How'd that happen? Because
After not benching for like months.
Right. And so why is that happening? And then what people don't realize is this is a funny thing because people think being in fatigue state is some kind of like thing that's correlated towards like I'm tired. And it couldn't be anything. It's nothing to do with that at all. It's like I'm tired. We're all tired. I get it. That's not what it is. Because what I was talking to her about before is like when you're in a deficit, you're probably actually never fatigued because you can't do anything.
You can't push it hard enough.
Can't push it hard enough to be fatigued. So the only thing that was stopping her from literally getting that was just energy. And it's just the energy by description of giving her body enough to actually do basic bodily tasks. Like daily. That's it. It's just like once I gave her those calories back, it's like bring calories from 1550 back to 2000, go. Close grip. Bros, I remember that day I literally saw, I was like, what do you want to talk to me about today? Because you're benching like a monster. Like, yeah, so there's reasons because calories are there, right? And it's a crazy realization for people to understand. So it's like, yeah, this is very true. And exercise redundancy it's a pit because it not only is there as a fear behavior because the person's implementing it because they don't understand it and they don't understand how to get results. So again, jam that button. But it's also something it's actually digging themselves into a further hole that's the only answer. And I've been there and it's freaking scary because like you're like 1 week leg extension drops at 50,000 and you're like, well, next week 30 what, how many drop sets? I did 20 last week. Should I do 30 this week? And it's like, well, what's that? What do you do though? Right?
Yeah, you can't just intensity is, I don't know, easier to compound than volume, because you're right. If you're just volume, I mean, then you're just there for hours and hours and hours because all you're progressing is volume.
Yeah. It's like, man, it's a crazy thing to kind of realize. Alex, what was your myth? Sorry to change topic drastically. I just realized that I'm not sure if I heard you say that. Because Corinne's is baseball.
I don't know, because you not that I completely appreciate it because it's the two separate sides of it, right?
Yeah.
Because I completely agree that in the end you have to move well or it's never going to do anything. But mine is the myth of like you have to move perfectly before you start going heavy.
Okay.
Because so many people will get stuck in that wasn't perfect. I got to do this lightweight again until it's perfect.
Yeah. I'm gonna let you handle this. Take it for a couple seconds.
Yeah. So mine was a little bit more on definitely move well, but you got to go heavy if you want to grow. So that was my myth of if it's not perfect in every single way, you're not going to grow. That's not true, because even if you're failing wrong and you're lifting completely wrong, you're growing something. So then over time, as you learn that, no, I should be moving like this better to grow this actual muscle, but I know what heavy feels like.
Yeah.
So what do you think it's rooted in? Do you think it's rooted in fear? Or do you think it's rooted in what? What do you think the problem is?
I think we're all human and we think that, we know best and we can do things perfectly. And so therefore, in some ways, if you have an excuse that you're not going heavy and feeling that like failure of, holy shit, this is heavy, I can't lift it another 2 times. You can always say, well, it's because I'm not perfect yet, so I'm just going to keep continuing to work on this. I can go look back at my old videos of like, oh, this is more weight than I've ever done. And I'm moving it so easily that I still wasn't to a place where I was actually building anything. Yeah. So it's like that's my myth of you got to learn what heavy is while also moving well. Or moving well is just great. You're an in shape person who can move well, which is great for normal life. But if you want to grow, that's not the only thing.
Before you go, Corinne, just remind me later on if you're done talking to just revisit this, because the topic of RIR is really interesting one. I think you lightly touched there, because like that is definitely intertwined and kind of like it's stuck and it exists in that exact same place where not only if you don't know how to move well, but if you don't know how to push yourself, how do you even know you're in a place of 1 to 2 reps in reserve? So how do you even know if you can begin to quantify hypertrophy? But again, I'm going to cut it there. Corinne, you look like you're going to talk.
Well, I was just gonna bring it back. I guess it still just relates to like the more is better kind of thing. And this is just like observations from looking around a little bit in the world of bodybuilding. Especially looking at like wellness and bikini girls that are doing like 4 leg days a week. Or like, there's people around, right, that, they'll post, oh, doing Bulgarians for the 2nd day in a row. And it's like,
It's like, cool, if you want to
He's
just
laughing,
move
he
and
knows.
kill yourself. Yeah, he knows exactly what
Okay,
it is.
yeah, I'm going to tell you. Well, that is one level away from naming names. People.
So
So here, just say like people in, and then we're gonna bleep out this area. We're not gonna say mountain.
doing the same exercise multiple days in a row.
Yeah.
I guess. Okay.
But again, it's a goal thing. Are you doing it because you like XYZ exercise and it helps you burn calories? Great. But if you're doing it for hypertrophy, that's not going to work.
Yeah, I remember doing that similar stuff like in my basement. And the funny thing is I can actually say with 100% conviction that it wasn't out of any feverish things other than I was just practicing. I was like, I like this. I'm going to try this again today. But I used to practice squats almost daily. And it was like, I'm going to try it. I'm going to try doing this today and try to get better at it and kind of move and trying to get to that position. And I really wanted to practice this. And it was just out of curiosity. It was an ambitious thing. And now it's funny because even looking back at that, regardless of my intention, I still was like, well, what is my intention? I'm intending to move the bar more efficiently. Well, what is that? What is moving the bar more efficiently? Expressing strength in a position. That's what it is. So then I'm still actually trying to chase something. I think I'm chasing my tail because in order to express strength in a position more efficiently, you need to have, again, fatigue come down. You need to make sure that you're not overdoing it. So it actually would have served me better to have more time off. But it is funny because to kind of go off what you're saying, Corinne, the whole exercise redundancy in that field, especially with women, the first time I actually started appreciating that, though, in a different light, was when I heard, and I will name this one, it's a good thing, but when I started listening to Brett Contreras talk about it, because he was talking about one of the main reasons why there's so much exercise redundancy and like, I shouldn't say regression, but it's like stupid exercises, to be honest with you, stupid exercises, like booty kickbacks are, for 90% of the population, retarded, right? But the reason why they exist is because so many women are in gear, and that's actually true. There's so many women on gear. So when they're trying to get their physique to a new place, then when you actually, because of the gear single being so powerful, again, powerful enough that I can sit on the couch behind me and grow, then you have to realize if I'm going to do something like a walking lunge, and if I have barbells on my back, I may develop my traps and I may develop my quads and my calves so much, and even my core, that my glutes won't be the thing that I actually see development in. So it's
right.
better.
It's not expressing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's better to have those people get so hyper specific and then throw them into 5 different leg days a week where they just do different positions. But that's not really what you're referring to. You're like Bulgarians one day.
Because I feel like in those cases too, like they're more isolated exercises. Like they'll do a glute kickback. So yeah.
Yeah, but the redundancy is still there. It's like glutes yesterday, glutes today, glutes this.
Yeah.
And that's what I was kind of referring to earlier about how like people will know this stuff about volume literature. They'll know this stuff about fatigue management, or at least they've been exposed to it, and they'll try to like pump it up like they're like on the side of it. Then they'll slip their client like underneath the door in like a fancy envelope, like a program that says like 10 sets, 30, do it. 10 sets of 30, and I want you to do drop sets on all the sets too. And then their clients are like, yeah. And then it perpetuates stuff. And like, it's sad because when as you as the trainer, or the coach, not only are you trying to help your client get stronger because you know that's actually how they're going to grow, but now you're dismantle the myths that are perpetuated by the industry, right? And it's like, that's not how it works. And the funny thing is, this isn't something we can really talk to it, but when you realize it in the actuality of like competition, you see it. You actually see it all come undone. And you'll hear it in the language. They'll all say things like, oh, I came in flat. I deflated, or I did this. They always talk about different things that they're trying to provide as an excuse as to why they didn't come in looking the way they should have looked. Glutes on comp day. Weird. Why is that? Maybe because the whole time you're training, your glutes were just swollen. It finally subsided. And then what happens? You had actually no glute. where it's like you can actually not have that and you can just be the same size all the time if you train smart. And alongside that, you don't have to have like what do they call deload weeks? Like there's
Yeah.
things you have to have, and a deload week is one of them. That was actually a post I
Yeah,
was planning on.
that's
Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that's an interesting one because it's almost like the more volume people do, the more often you see that they'll need deloads.
All the time. All the time. It's
There's dead. Like they get you
Yeah.
flame out. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I haven't intentionally deloaded shit for like over a year. I
Yeah.
don't think. No,
Yeah.
that's not even a thing. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Doing it this way again, I came off that volume, and I was like, yeah, I'm pretty gassed, man. Like I'm good for a little bit. I mean, not that we took like a week off or anything, but it was just like, yeah, I can feel like, and it's not even right. You can go in there and move through the same reps, especially on a volume, because you're just not increasing weight, or you just die a lot earlier. But like mentally, you're just like, dude, I need a mental deload of like getting into the gym and just grinding it out like that. Whereas if you're just trying to go in there and get heavy ass reps to 5 to 8 and just slow down, and you know when you've slowed down enough to be like, I can't get another one, then the next week you're ready to do it again.
Yeah, and no, dude, it's insane the difference in the feeling. I remember when I first started jumping the style of programming, I'm not here to boast. I'm sure you guys felt the exact same, but I legitimately had to do double takes of machines. I was like, I don't understand. I don't get it. This shouldn't. What is it broken? I legitimately thought it was broken. Corinne, that machine I told you a couple of times, that machine, that Atlantis chest press in Dieppe was the first one. I remember lying down on this, and that one, I was trying to conquer that for a long time because I loved the pattern of it. You probably saw it at Pure, Alex. It wasn't the same because the one that the gym here, it's selectorized. It's not plate loaded, but it's the same thing as like the slightly converging press. So it has a good path to it. And I was like stuck at like, I don't know, like 270 on the thing, right? Wouldn't move. And then when I started just bringing down volume and understanding, I actually, when I first started doing this, I actually had about 2 weeks where I just did one such failure. That was it. And I saw phenomenal results, like phenomenal results. And then what happened is I started noticing that was baselining. So I started playing with how many sets I could get away with without being declined. And I found that still worked. But yeah, anyways, when I was approaching that after I kind of entered into a lower volume phase, within like a week, I went back to the machine and I put the full stack up after climbing, and I went, oh, and I just pumped out like 10. I was like, what the hell? This must be broken. It actually must be broken. I don't understand. And it was just because literally, like, no, you can always do it. That's what people don't get. So you can always do it, but if you're not doing it and you can, then you're not loading. You're literally not loading the fibers. So then you have another choice. This is why, again, the volume trap is a very tricky one. It's almost like a Venus flytrap. It's like you get stuck in the stuff in the center and then you can't escape, right? It's like what happens is if you can't load it, if you can't actually load the muscle to get the high level of recruitment because you're always in a fatigue state, then what you have to do is you have to get mechanical tension by chasing a massive amount of reps. Because again, all roads still lead to mechanical tension. So the people who are chasing that, they're not incorrect in how they're doing it because they still do get the result. The problem is they're getting the result at the expense of massive fatigue. And then so the fatigue never goes away, which is why they have the deloads, and then which is why they're always talking about like joint pain and all this kind of stuff. Without naming names, Trent, shoulders that just start, hurting, that play out of there, and these things shouldn't be there. And it's like, yeah, like this is a real thing, guys. Like if you pay attention, smart programming takes away the salt, or takes all this away.
I always go towards the mental side of even just it's more mental fatigue than it is muscle. Again, your muscle's going to go through and do it. But if you just can't get in the gym, it's like, this is going to be a rough day. Like you've already kind of lost that tension battle. Like I'm getting here, I moved, burned some calories, good deal, I'm out of here. But all back to hypertrophy is growing. So if that's your goal, you don't need to be doing all those other things. And the myth that you have to always, it's great to get a good pump. And sometimes in these like heavy strength days, you're not all jacked up and pumped afterwards because you just don't you're just not all volume, blood flow into that specific area. And so I think just getting over the initial mental hurdles of it's all volume. I need to look huge as I'm posing in the mirror, getting changed back for work or going back, whatever, right? Like I need to see that kind of future self result, but that goes away so much faster than the overtime just getting stronger.
Yeah, but it creates that perpetuation cycle, right? So I guess one of the things that I heard kind of there is you have to, I think it'd be a powerful thing for people to understand, like, what are you actually here for? Like legit, what are you actually here for? Are you here to look good in the mirror in the gym? Or are you here to like take your clothes off the next morning and still look great?
Yeah.
I was actually, I was reflecting on this the other day because I had a couple cool progress pictures that I'd taken like 2 years ago that they were immediately after workout, and I looked pumped and I looked jacked and I was like, oh, I look great. I really felt I looked great. And then the funny thing is, in my photo album, I actually had pictures also of me where they weren't in the gym, and I was like, I look like shit. I look like shit. I was like, what
like
the
deflated.
hell? Yeah. I don't understand it. And then like where it's taken now is I feel like instead of having that massive fluctuation where it's like canyon, right? You know, this peak and valley. Now I just feel like it's just here. It's just like it doesn't really change.
Yeah.
I kind of look the exact same. What are you laughing about, Corinne? And it's
Well,
always
it just made me think of like whatever the saying is, it's like you'll never be as good as your pump or whatever.
Yeah.
No. The pump is the future you.
Yeah.
That's the way
It's a glimpse. It's a glimpse.
You will look as good as your pump because the pump is the future you.